Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Fountain of Youth, starring John Krasinski, Natalie Portman, Isaac Gonzalez, Domhnall Gleeson, Ariane Moayed, Laz Alonso, Carmen Ujogo, Stanley Tucci, and Benjamin Chivers, directed by Guy Ritchie. In case if anybody doesn't know what this movie is, it's streaming on Apple TV Plus. So if you have Apple TV Plus, feel free to watch this movie on well, no matter what I think of the movie on Apple TV Plus. So let's get into the movie because and before I do, welcome back to Guy Ritchie leading up to In the Gray, which is coming sometime soon. I don't know how soon, but let's just come into this movie with adventure, shall we? Let's get into it. In Bangkok, Thailand, Luke Purdue, played by John Krasinski, rides on a motorcycle until his boss's goons, led by Sam, come after him with the painting of the Fountain of Youth as they bring some guns involved to get the painting back. And he gets away as two cars go after him and they go inside some mall, which is stupid as hell. And Luke calls Patrick Murphy, played by Laz Alonso, and tells him he can't make it to the airport as he steals a motorcycle while it's on fire. And he is on the run and takes a train. And while on the train at nighttime, Luke gets encountered by Esme, played by Isaac Gonzalez, as she tries to steal the painting of the Fountain of Youth, and he gets off the train and runs away with it from Esme and her associates, as well as the title as well. And we get to the title card of the movie 11 minutes into the movie, and this action as well as the other action scenes are so hard to follow. In England, Luke's sister Charlotte, played by Natalie Portman, are in a room with her ex-husband Harold's lawyer while she's trying to get custody of her son Thomas, played by Benjamin Chivers. While she's working at a museum and she sees Luke looking at the paintings, and he steals a painting and puts it down so she can go on an adventure with him, and she reluctantly gets in the car. And Natalie Portman ruins this movie, as I don't like the characters in this movie as they come off pretentious, and they bring Charlotte into a van with Patrick and Deb McCall, played by Carmen Ejogo, who used to work for their father, who died 10 years ago, and they're still working under the Purdue family. And she doesn't accept the adventure, and Luke drops her off at the sidewalk and walks back into the museum and gets interrogated by Inspector Jamal Abbas, played by Ariane Moayed. I don't know if I said the name right, please forgive me. And again, these characters are absolutely pretentious, as the acting is terrible in this movie throughout. Absolutely terrible. Charlotte gets unemployed and reluctantly goes to Luke to go to the adventure along with Patrick, Deb, and Owen Carver, played by Domhnall Gleeson, who's dying of cancer, which I didn't buy, as I know he's lying. And how many times have I seen a movie where he plays a liar? As Lord knows, I can't think of one. As they look for the Fountain of Youth, and Luke shows Charlotte the mission and the plan, and she says there's no markings on the back, as I'm reminded of National Treasure, where they see markings behind the Declaration of Independence with lemon juice, which was bad enough as it is. And Luke goes to the library and encounters Esme once again and talks about how to not get hurt as he tries to kiss her, and that doesn't work, as this movie is bad enough as it is, with terrible writing to begin with. Luke sees Charlotte and Thomas while Thomas is performing on the piano, and Thomas sees Uncle Luke and asks if he still goes on adventures, and says Charlotte doesn't believe in adventures. As we move on to Ireland with Charlotte, Patrick, Owen, and Deb, and they go underwater into the Titanic in the Pacific to go inside and why the hell did Guy Ritchie make an adventure movie? As this is not Sherlock Holmes good at all. As they get the ship out of the water and they go inside, and this is very confusing to me, as half the movie was confusing as hell. And that's not a good thing for an adventure. I'm watching this movie and I'm thinking, why am I bored? Because this is a boring movie. And if Guy Ritchie knows how to do anything, it's not making me bored, as I was with this movie. A helicopter appears and has Esme on it as she comes down, while Luke and Charlotte have an old but yet terrible drink that tastes funny. And Esme encounters Luke, but with Charlotte this time, and gets shot, but misses anyways. And Esme has Charlotte hostage. Eventually, Luke thinks, and that's when Charlotte has the upper hand. And they both get in the water, and I was confused about what was happening at this point. Like, did Luke lose the painting, or did Esme die? But no, she was left underwater, from what Luke says later in the film. As Luke and Charlotte get out of it alive, and they've got the painting, and Charlotte gets pissed at Luke, while Harold decides to take Thomas for a year in Tokyo, Japan, as she hears Owen's name while FaceTime, and Luke tries to calm her down, and she does, and comes back in the room and discovers what they have is versus what they need next. As I'm bored and want to turn this movie off, as I'm not into this. Inspector Abbas comes in and points the guns at them, until Luke's boss's minion Sam comes in with some men and gets the cops as well as the adventurers, and Luke talks his way out of things and lets Charlotte, Patrick, Deb, and Owen out of the room and plays loud music from Battle Royale, which I have seen, but not for 10 years, at least, which is better than this movie for damn sure. And Luke finds a way to escape, and the Inspector Abbas kills Sam and his boss's men, and they escape. And how many times are they going to escape? I can't tell you how many times I keep writing escape in my notes. Is beyond me, as this movie gets repetitive, and Luke wakes up on the plane with Thomas on the plane with Charlotte, as she wants to help herself help Luke be referenced with this family name, and she's trying to enjoy the adventure, and they end up in Vienna, Austria, which is a pretty location, but makes this movie make it look bad. Luke, Charlotte, Patrick, and Deb go in a library, as I don't know what this place is, as they look at something fancy, while Esme comes back from the dead and encounters Luke and fights him again and leaves her hanging upside down. And they get out of there by spraying the librarian to knock her down, while Owen brings Thomas to a fancy restaurant, as Owen is a rich man. And Thomas asks Owen questions and then drinks some champagne, and Thomas gets drunk, which is not the best example of getting kids drunk nowadays, as he looks like he's 10 years old. Something like that, and some of the repetitiveness is going on from the beginning. It's not funny. Owen is forced to get in a car with Thomas, but fights his way out of some bad people. And Luke, Charlotte, and Deb get out of the library in a back way, while Patrick was behind to look after the car, as Thomas is drunk thanks to Owen, while Inspector Abbas looks at the crime scene, and Luke, Owen, and Patrick look over the painting, along with Deb and Charlotte, while Thomas is in the room, and Charlotte freaks out over Thomas's safety and wants him to get out of it, while Luke sees what real life is all about, and she takes Thomas and leaves them with very harsh words to Luke, and Thomas says something has a clue, and it connects to what they're looking for in a map. And this movie is a little too long, as I felt it dragging in one scene at one point in the movie, while they go to Egypt on a jet, and this movie makes the locations look bad throughout. In Vatican City, Esme sees the Elder, played by Stanley Tucci, who was just recently in Conclave, and is now in a very bad movie with a minor role, and his character felt pointless, while Luke and others get to Cairo, Egypt, to get something, as I don't understand what's going on at this point, as they get to the pyramids and go inside them to look for something the father never took in the first place, as they leave Patrick and Deb outside while the others grab inside the pyramid, and Owen turns into a bad guy by getting rid of the professor that's touring them. And that's how predictable this movie is, and it may be one of the director Guy Ritchie's worst movies yet, in my opinion. While Inspector Abbas comes to the pyramid, and this scene could be in the editing room floor, Inspector Abbas breaks his way into the pyramid while Esme is behind the inspector, as Luke and Charlotte can argue with Owen and his men to stop drilling explosives inside the pyramid, and somehow get into an argument as Charlotte makes the bell ring in the pyramid, and they open the door, and somehow they go downstairs while Patrick and Deb fight off the cops coming into the pyramid, and Esme joins them as well as the inspector, and Owen sacrifices one of his minions to go first, as Owen, Luke, and Charlotte go behind the minion, and see a painting of some kind and go in a dark room. And I'm just bored at this point. They get into some kind of maze as Abbas and Esme get in, and they're in the dark room. And this is when Owen becomes the bad guy, as he lied about his cancer from the beginning of the movie, as he invites Luke to go into the circle of doom. And Charlotte gets on his nerves, and Owen shoots Luke in the shoulder as Abbas and Esme gets closer and closer to the location, and Luke awakens some water. And it grows in which other movies have done before, so that's not original, as this is an Indiana Jones / National Treasure ripoff put in a blender, and you've got this movie, as the mystery is unconvincing me to enjoy this movie, as he sees his own dreams come to life inside the pyramid, and do I care? Not at all. As I'm ready to check out of this movie, as this isn't exciting me while Owen goes in the water and cuts himself in the wrist, as Abbas and Esme see Owen getting into the water, and Esme gets a key to shut it down by the Elder, and Owen conquers the power while he dies. Luke, Charlotte, and Thomas run out of the pyramid, along with Abbas and Esme, who happens to be on their side, and the pyramid closes as they get out of time and alive, and Luke and Esme talk, and she kisses him on the lips, and they walk back alive and decide to go on more adventures. And the climax was bad enough to make this one of director Guy Ritchie's worst film yet to date. But how much? Let's get into the rating and find out. I'll give this movie a 1.9 out of 10. This may be one of director Guy Ritchie's worst movies in my opinion, as this movie is stupid as hell, while the action scenes were very hard to follow. And I don't like these characters as they're pretentious in this movie. Absolutely pretentious, as Natalie Portman ruined this movie for me. And the acting is terrible throughout, and I don't buy their characters, as this is predictable right out the bat, and this movie is so bad enough as it is. This has terrible writing to begin with, and why in the hell did director Guy Ritchie make an adventure movie that is, as this is not Sherlock Holmes good at all, as this movie is confusing as hell, and that's not a good thing for an adventure. And I'm watching this movie thinking, I was bored. And why is that? And that's because it's a boring movie to a point I wanted to turn the movie off, as I'm not into this. The movie is a little too long, and it gets repetitive really quick, and it's not funny. And I can't believe, after doing this retrospective rather recently, that Guy Ritchie made a bad movie, and this is a solid non-recommendation, or a strong non-recommendation for this movie, better yet. As the location shots look kind of bad, as this movie just bored me, as this feels like an Indiana Jones / National Treasure ripoff put in a blender, and you got this movie. And this is a bad version of those two movies. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for coming back for Guy Ritchie's filmography, and I will be back as soon as In the Gray comes out. And until then, have a good evening.